Somaliland wasn't always a self-declared state. It was once the British protectorate of Somaliland, gaining independence on the 26th of June 1960. For a few days, it was a sovereign nation before voluntarily uniting with the newly independent Italian Somaliland to form the Republic of Somalia. It didn't take long for cracks to show. Many in the north felt power was being centralized in Mogadishu, the capital of Somalia, leaving them marginalized. The real rupture came under President Seyad Barre's military dictatorship, which seized power in 1969. Between 1987 and 1989, his forces carried out brutal campaigns against the Isaaq clan, massacres that many regard as genocide. Tens of thousands were killed, entire cities bombed. The Somali national movement, representing Somaliland's interests, fought back. By January 1991, Barre's regime had collapsed, and while the rest of Somalia plunged into chaos, Somaliland charted a different path, declaring independence and focusing on stability. And they've held on to that stability ever since. Under leaders like Muhammad Igal, Somaliland built institutions from scratch, moving from clan-based power sharing to multi-party democracy. In 2001, voters approved a new constitution. Since 2003, the territory has held several competitive elections with peaceful transfers of power. In 2024, Abdullahi's Wadani party won in one of only 5 African elections that year where an opposition took power without violence, a rare feat in the Horn of Africa. Contrast that with Somalia, which Freedom House rates as not free with a score of 8 out of 100. Somaliland scored 43, placing it firmly in partly free territory, but still far ahead of its neighbor. But democracy alone hasn't brought economic prosperity. With a GDP of about $7 billion in 2022, much of it from diaspora remittances, Somaliland is locked out of World Bank and IMF funding because it isn't recognized as a state. Youth unemployment is high, brain drain is real, and infrastructure development is slow. Despite all of that, Hargeisa has secured notable foreign investments. The standout is the 2016 deal with DP World to manage the port of Berbera, a project now partly involving Ethiopia.
Somaliland is not a small country. They have over 4 million people and a lot of businessmen and traders. And we are looking forward for the economic corridor between Ethiopia and, of course, Somaliland. Somaliland is very close to the main distribution area in Ethiopia, which is Dir Dawa, which is the main logistic area. And so the relation between the countries are being very good, and many Somaliland people live in Ethiopia, and Ethiopia looks with positive attitude toward Somaliland. We definitely found an opportunity. We developed the port immediately. Cargo started to come. We are able to handle any size of vessels in Berbera. There is another stage of expansion if needed. The government also, His Excellency the President, provided land for industries. We have already factories under construction, and there are more factories coming to that place.
Then there's the controversial 2024 agreement with Ethiopia, offering it a slice of Somaliland's coastline for 50 years in exchange for recognition and airline shares. That deal collapsed after Somalia and Ethiopia patched things up under Turkish mediation, a diplomatic blow that likely reinforced Somaliland's push to court the US. So why is the timing right for this American overture? Because the geopolitical chessboard has shifted. The Horn of Africa is now a playground for great players and great powers. The UAE already operates the port of Berbera and an adjacent airstrip. China has its first overseas military base in Djibouti, just 240 kilometers away, right next to the US base at Camp Lemonnier. Djibouti is crowded, expensive, and strategically awkward for the US. A base in Somaliland would give Washington flexibility and a partner not already in Beijing's orbit. Reports suggest that since March 2025, US and Somaliland officials have been in quiet talks about partial recognition in exchange for base access. It's not a done deal, but it's closer than Somaliland has ever come. And of course, China looms over all this. Beijing's influence in Africa has exploded, from infrastructure loans to mining rights to military outposts. The Chinese base in Djibouti gives them a front row seat at Red Sea traffic and proximity to American forces. For Washington, countering that influence isn't just about rivalry, it's about securing supply chains, ensuring freedom of navigation, and maintaining its own strategic outreach. Somaliland, democratic and eager to align with the West, is positioning itself as that alternative. But the road to recognition isn't exactly clear. The biggest obstacle? The US, like the African Union, officially backs a one Somalia policy. Somalia's government fiercely opposes recognition, warning it would undermine territorial integrity and embolden other separatist movements across Africa. From a counter-terrorism perspective, Washington also doesn't want to weaken Somalia's federal government, which it supports in the fight against Al-Shabaab and other extremist groups. And there's the precedent problem. Since 1963, only Eritrea and South Sudan have been widely recognized as new African states. So where does this leave Somaliland? President Abdullahi has hinted that deals on security and minerals could proceed without formal recognition, suggesting a phased approach. It might start with military cooperation and investment, then move towards some form of de facto recognition, even if de jure recognition takes years. In the context of US-China competition, Somaliland's leverage is real. The question is whether Washington will see it as worth the diplomatic fallout with Mogadishu and the precedent it might set for other separatist territories. For Somaliland, this is a make or break moment. If Washington bites, it could transform the territory's fortunes overnight. If not, the people of Somaliland face more years in diplomatic limbo, stable, democratic, but still unrecognized. One thing is certain, in the shifting sands of the Red Sea, this small, unrecognized state has managed to put itself at the center of a very big conversation. 34 years after declaring independence, Somaliland has learned to survive without recognition. Now, it's betting that in a world defined by great power rivalry, survival isn't enough, and that bold moves can only finally bring it the legitimacy it has long sought.